Back in 2008, my wife Carly and I decided to join a team that would work in a remote area of South Sudan for 2 years. To get to this area, they had to build an airstrip on the top of a mountain, and this particular airstrip happened to not only be short, but it also had a little dogleg in it, which made landings pretty exciting. It was during this time that Carly developed a fear of flying, which you can imagine was quite inconvenient when your only way of transport is a small plane. We didn't know where this fear came from, as Carly had flown many times before without even flinching. But it was during this time that I truly learned what courage is. Flight after flight, while squeezing my hand, Carly soared into the air full of anxiety and fear. And although that fear is no longer present, it was the most real experience to Carly in that moment. I've heard it said that courage is not the absence of fear, but the action in the face of fear. And as I witnessed Carly throughout this season, I couldn't agree more. Franklin Roosevelt said it another way that I find even more descriptive. He said, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear." Carly assessed the people of South Sudan more important than her fear, and she trusted God with her circumstances. And it was only in stepping into this tough situation that she could experience the peace of God and develop a deeper relationship of trust with Him. If you are like me, when you hear stories like this, or stories of someone else sacrificing in a big way, some kind of courageous moment or act, you admire that act. But why? When a mama bear fights off predators to protect her baby cub, do you think they sit back and admire the act of courage? Maybe you know more about bear psychology than I do, but I would venture to say that the answer to that question is no. Humans are unique beings who have the ability to reflect on an action and deem it sacrificial or courageous. But beyond this reflective aspect, to even call something courageous requires some prior assumptions. When we admire courage or sacrifice, we affirm the value of something. Carly deemed the Didinga people more valuable than her fear and sacrificed her comfort. Martin Luther King Jr. deemed the lives of the oppressed valuable enough to continually risk his own life, which eventually led to his death. We also see this theme everywhere in our movies. In Marvel's Endgame, Iron Man deemed the existence of humanity more valuable than his own. It is pretty crazy that a story that we know is fictional can move us to tears. Why? I think our admiration of courage and sacrifice stems from a common place within all of us. Because all human beings are uniquely created in the image of God, we can observe our world and see places where human beings are making visible the characteristics of God. A lot is going on in any situation where we admire something as courageous, but I want to point out two things. First, when we admire courage and sacrifice, we are often assuming that human life is valuable. When we encounter a story of a child being rescued from life-threatening circumstances, we assume that that life being rescued is valuable and worth rescuing. And the life of those doing the rescuing is also valuable, even to put themselves at risk. One of the ways we can know how much someone values something is by observing the price they are willing to pay for it. Sacrifice doesn't always have to be linked with fear. And when we look at Jesus, we can see how God showed us the ultimate sacrifice by leaving the comforts of his heavenly home and living a fully human life, ultimately laying down his life in order to provide a way for all of humanity to be reconciled to him. We are created in the image of a sacrificial God who shows humanity its worth by being willing to give his own life while being rejected by the ones he came to save. He didn't wait until we earned his favor to sacrifice himself. The Bible says it this way. It says, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So the next time you experience the undeniable admiration of a sacrificial or courageous act shining through in your life, realize that this admiration is meant to move us beyond the act in itself and to point us toward the God who created you and me in his image.